Dansa near Leonard and Sikhason now. I grew up in a community called Collin Lake. We had I guess what we call um, a traditional upbringing growing up, being that we were raised on the land, so that's where a lot of my wisdom and knowledge comes from. And my first language was Woodland Cree, fluent Cree. But I don't like the word woodland either. I like the term Sagawino. So for the Sagawino, the woodland people, we hunt, we trapped, and we fished, and we grew our own food. Our language is old. We've always had it, and there's not much that's written or talked about, about the woods people.
Right.
And there's a reason why. It's everything's orally taught. And you couldn't live in huge groups because of the environment that we had to live in. The boreal forest, they say, is one of the toughest environments to live in, and so you had to belong to your environment, and then that's how your language, and whatever else. Your ceremonies and stuff like that, your dances will kind of cater to that environment as well. And those ceremonies those dance ceremonies are still, being done by people, the woods people. And there's another dance that they use a lot, and it's called Mas Simoan. And that one too is still being practiced in the north. And they would invite people. It's sort of that reciprocity piece. Where people would give back because they've asked for something, and in return they would give something in return, which is their, maybe a part of whatever they harvested and feed people, because they were grateful. So you're really dependent on the land, your prayer, your thoughts, your emotion, how you conduct yourself in life. And that's how we were as the people of the land, of the forest. We work with that, trying to work in that harmony with the day. The seasons, there's always something to do. There's always a preparation. Our people were like the scientists, because they have to understand their environment today. And then we have oral history and oral tradition, that others before us that, left those pieces for us. Like the fire, we have teachings around fire. We say the fire is one of the most sacred of all the gifts that the Creator gave us, because that fire also is a representation of our spirit. That sacred flame. That fire back then would protect you, give you comfort, be a companion, and watch out over you. But it can also hurt you if you don't, you don't respect it, and stuff like that.
Right.
But that's with anything in this world. We have to learn to have that balance of life. And so those fires for us in the ceremonial process, whether it be ceremony or dance, are very significant for us. I think the main thing is to learn who you are, like all of you, like just embrace who you are as a person. But more and more things are changing in this changing world now. And so people are, looking for ways to identify to who they are. And so when they try to identify that way, there has to be different ways to be able to teach them to. There's a lot of people don't go to ceremony, stuff like that, for whatever reasons. Some of it is historical interruption. Some of it is just, the way they're raised. Maybe this will find a way to, for somebody to seek out other things, for their own identity as who they are as a people of this land.
This is Elder Darlene Chawis, and she is from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation.
First of all, I would like to say that even though we are known as a Woodland Cree, but I always like to say we are Nihil, because that's the language that we use. And the Nihil recognizes the four quadrants of a being. So in anything that we do, we always consider the four directions. Here in our area, we became the Woodland Cree, Sagawi Noag, which means like we are from the forest, people of the forest. That there were certain people who had the rights, rights, the rights to conduct different ceremonies. We had what we call wehkohtona. Wehkohtona are the ceremonies that we have, and a wehkohton will include feasting and dancing. And they would, every ceremony would always have a lodge that would be built using mostly poplar poles, and some of the branches. Every ceremony that they would have with Kohtona Hohe, they would have 4 fires. And I believe the 4 fires represent the 4 directions. But these ceremonies were done by, it had to be by someone who had the right to do it, the right to conduct these ceremonies. There were many different kinds of ceremonies throughout the year. Very, very important in our community, because these ceremonies were our strength. It created unity, created healing, and it looked after us. In our community, that kind of knowledge was really, really held, like really protected. So nobody talked about these things. You didn't see drums hanging on the walls. You never saw rattles or anything like that was used in any of these ceremonies. Yeah, that's just the way our people were. And even knowledge of medicines was never shared openly. Any kinds of ceremonies, and so that was, the first one was the Thanksgiving for harvest. The second one was the invitation only. That was for lodgemen and people with medicines to renew them, make them more powerful. There was another one, and during that ceremony, sometimes if somebody had a person in the family that was very sick, they would go to the ceremony and they would go and ask there. If that person became healthy after being doctored and got back up again, then they would put another ceremony where they would do a Thanksgiving for that person's life, as somebody was brought back to health, good health and strength was back to that person again. And then there was another one that they would do. This one was for like a round dance, just to bring people together, probably just to socialize. And they would do the round dance would not be like the way we do it today, where we hold hands and we move in a circle. We would still be dancing around the fires, but we'd be dancing one behind the other.
Right.
And nobody's holding hands. And you would have your own style, of dancing. And so that was our round dance. Yeah, Wasagami Sumon. There were all kinds of other ceremonies that were done. People held proprietary ownership. People didn't talk about ceremonies. You never heard people talk about anything about ceremonies. And part of the reason is because the government did not want our people to continue that practice. They considered it, I'm not sure how. Yeah, they considered they said they called it devil worship. And that's not true at all. Our people always prayed to the Creator and believed in that. Every time you do a ceremony, even a round dance today, we are starting to teach our younger people because we know that the older people with that knowledge are leaving us. We are losing many of them. And so in order for this to stay alive, we need to start sharing some of this knowledge. And this is what we're being told by our elders. Those elders have already passed on.
The teachings from my grandfather, my dad, is that when we lose or someone passes away, is that we never really lose them. And what I mean by that is that whenever the Northern Lights are out, is that's where all our grandfathers are dancing. Even if the baby, a newborn, or a 100-year-old, or they all become our grandfathers. And so we offer tobacco when we see them, and you'll notice if you look closely at the Northern Lights that you'll see little figurines all like this, and then they're all going around and dancing and stuff. And